every single toxic person that you have is like throwing inflammation in the body. It's like throwing a knife into your side or a knife in your back. If somebody's a backstabbing jerk, more or less. All right. Cutting those things out of your life can be absolutely profound. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Jacque Show. I am so excited to go over our topic today, but I did want to address something real quickly. As we've been doing these podcasts, we've had a lot of doctors reach out and wanting to know if I am willing to coach or how to learn how to do some of these techniques, the testing, the protocols, etc. And I want to let you know we're in the process of rolling out a coaching program as well as a business coaching program that you're able to work with me, and we're able to help you to meet your goals, whatever it may be, whether it's in functional medicine or just in business altogether. So with all that aside, let's dive into our topic today. So today we're going to be talking about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is something that a lot of women suffer with, especially in the United States. And it's a disease process, in my opinion, that's incredibly misunderstood and overly treated with medications. And medications that can actually be very harmful to a woman's body. Now, a lot of women get put on birth control or maybe metformin or spironolactone whenever you have that diagnosis of PCOS. But what I always come back to is the reason that your body has or is producing polycystic or cysts on your ovaries is not from a lack of those medications. So we need to figure out an understanding of what causes to begin with. So we're going to do it. All right. Because this is something that I see and I work with on a daily basis. And women are starting to get their cycles back, not being on medications. They're able to get pregnant. This falls into that category. This falls into that realm of the whole infertility side of things. All right. Because a lot of people with PCOS, I've had patients who've been misdiagnosed with PCOS and were told that they would never be able to get pregnant, just take these medications and just kind of suffer with that. And it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching for women who want to be pregnant, who want to bring life into this world, to suffer with it. So we're going to dive into this. I have a lot of nerdy stuff pulled up here on my iPad, so we're going to really dive in deep today. Hopefully it's not too heady or over your head with this information, but it's something that I want to give you information on the cause, as well as some simple things you can do, even from a dietary standpoint, that can tremendously help your odds at overcoming PCOS. So let's do it. So what are our symptoms? What are our typical symptoms that we're dealing with when we have PCOS? What, in a woman's mind, what gets you in the mindset of, hey, maybe I might have this, maybe I should get tested for this? What am I dealing with? Now, most commonly, what you're going to have is going to be missed or irregular periods. Irregular could be 40 days, could miss a couple months, back and forth. And it's just a whole bunch of like, I have no idea when my cycle is going to come, but I know when it does, it's miserable. All right. And that brings us to what else happens. So you can have very painful, very, very painful cramping associated with PCOS. Now, again, with not having that predictability of when your period is going to be coming, I've had patients that I've worked with that they're trying to figure out what days they're going to have to call off of work and use sick days or vacation days just to manage the symptoms of PCOS. All right, it's pretty crazy. So again, we're going to dive in deep as the cause, but that's some of the symptoms that you can feel. Other symptoms you can deal with. You can have male pattern baldness. You can be producing too much hair, not quite like my beard, but you can be developing mustache, or you can have a lot of hair or even cystic acne along the jawline. Something that a lot of women suffer with PCOS. Why? Well, it tends to be due to an excess secretion of androgens, okay, or your male dominant hormones from your body. Okay, so what happens? Why? Well, what happens is we get an excess signal coming from the brain, okay, hyperstimulation of GnRH. It's going to tell your body, hey, we need to produce an increased amount of, typically it's going to be your LH or luteinizing hormone. When luteinizing hormone goes high, it actually causes an excess secretion of those testosterone dominant type hormones. Okay. The other thing that it can do is it can actually suppress your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone. And the way that it does that is it makes your body think that you're cycling, even though it's not. And so you just skip it. You skip your cycle, you skip your period, and you wonder when it's going to be coming again. And then the side note of that, some women are just like, well, I don't want to have my period because it's miserable when it's here. So maybe I should just have it, never be here again. Not a good thing, not a healthy thing for you. We'll dive in deeper as to why. Now, other thing you can have symptom-wise whenever it comes to PCOS is an excess amount of body weight. Whether it's around the belly or the butt and the thighs, usually that can be seen with like an endometriosis type presentation or too much estrogen. But women with PCOS can also have that physical prowess as well. This is also something where I'll see people with PCOS, they'll pick up a weight, they'll go do their typical bodybuilding movements, or they'll go do CrossFit or whatever it is, and they'll gain a ton of muscle mass, which will push into the fat that they have and make them look way bigger than they actually are. Being more androgenic, your hormones are more in line, with a man's. Therefore, it's easier for you to put on muscle mass. Now, for some, like, hey, great. Like, I want to put on more muscle mass. But we also have to understand what we're sacrificing whenever we're having that type of dominance anyways. So there's more to it. So what else? What else do I see? What would be a good test, or what would be a good question that your doctor could be asking you whenever it comes to PCOS? One of the questions that I come up with is, what's your insulin doing? Right? Something that sometimes, doctors will test, as endocrinologists will test your insulin, but your fasting insulin, your fasting blood sugar, it's going to be really important to figure out how your body is managing glucose or how it's managing insulin. Okay. If you're developing insulin resistance, it's what we see a lot of the times with PCOS. So then what causes that? Well, if you're stressed, chronic stress, that increase in cortisol throws off the balance between cortisol and your insulin. So therefore, insulin, for those of you who don't know, insulin is what is secreted by your pancreas that allows your body to absorb the sugar or the glucose that you get from your food, carbohydrates. Now, if we have a diet very, very high in processed foods, or high in carbohydrates or sugars, or we have our vegans that love their vegan treats that are just laden with sugar. What that's going to do over time is your pancreas is going to have to secrete even more insulin to handle the demand for your sugar or for your glucose. All right. Now, as that happens, your cells become less receptive to insulin. So say, I'm just going to make this up, but say you needed 1 unit of insulin to handle 1 unit of your blood glucose or your sugar, right? And then all of a sudden, you need 2 units to handle the one, then 3 to handle the one, then 4 to handle the one. You're becoming insulin resistant, which means your body is resistant to the amount of insulin that you're actually producing. It's not, you need more workers to store your blood sugar. Now, what happens that can be very damaging with this as well is, say, for example, you have some sort of cancer that is being developed in your body, right? We know cancer feeds off of sugar. When we have insulin resistance, it can lead to metabolic syndrome, and it can lead to an increased risk of cancer. And then if you do have cancer, we want to make sure that we bounce back that insulin so that your body is more receptive to it once again. So those are just some things, again, useful tips, useful understandings for that. When it comes to insulin resistance as well, we talked about the diet. What about the lifestyle, right? What's your sleep like? What are your sleep habits like? When was the last time that your doctor asked how your sleep was? How are you doing? What's your nighttime routine? If we're having prolonged stress or prolonged cortisol releases that's causing our body not to be able to rest and recover at night, our body is going to be staying in that state of being catabolic. It's going to be breaking things down. If we don't sleep, our body will develop insulin resistance. So if you're like, hey, I got the diagnosis of PCOS, simple things to do, okay? Stay away from the carbs, stay away from the sugars. Now, I'm not telling you to go full on keto, even though in this instance, going more of a keto type diet will be massively beneficial for you. It'll actually switch your body from burning glucose to burning more fat as an energy source. And in doing so, it'll resensitize, if you will, it'll resensitize your insulin to your body. So your insulin will actually be more effective against or with the blood sugar if you do take some in. Now, women, because we're talking PCOS, Women, I don't want you to starve yourself long terms from carbs. If you do that, there are other organ systems that will start to fail on you. Your brain requires sugar, okay? It requires your glucose. But the other thing we see is when women for a prolonged period of time stay too far away from the carbohydrates, it'll actually start shutting down your thyroid. Shutting down thyroid then causes weight gain, causes more stress on the body, which causes your thyroid to push into hypothyroid and can even sometimes stimulate Hashimoto's or some sort of other type of autoimmune disease due to that, okay? When we're talking about this, make sure that your body is handling the stress properly. Now, when it comes to sleep, proper sleep, we want to try to be in bed and asleep by 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is kind of that cutoff limit. We don't want to be up past that. Leading up to that sleep, another thing that's very important is stop the dang eating. Don't eat close to bedtime. If you do, I can guarantee you will gain weight because you're throwing off your insulin, you're throwing off your blood sugar, your body has to break down food instead of repairing your body. So instead of sleeping and being anabolic, your body's sleeping and trying to be catabolic to handle the caloric load that you took and put into your body prior to bed. So rule of thumb, at least 2 to 3 hours prior to bedtime, stop the eating. Dinner time, don't do it between 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Snacking, once dinner is done, make sure you have a sufficient amount of protein, good amount of fats in there too. That'll hold that appetite over for you. Or even if you have to lock yourself in a bedroom to break the cycle of eating prior to bed, do it because it will have a profound impact on your health as well as balancing your insulin and also weight loss if that's something that you're looking for. When you are sleeping, right, a lot of women are like, well, I need melatonin to sleep. If you got PCOS, I bet you do. PCOS is seen with a higher symptomatology with anxiety, sometimes depression, bipolar. And so that stress is going to carry into your sleep. When cortisol goes up, melatonin goes down. They're inversely related. So a lot of people are chasing down melatonin to try to get themselves to sleep, but they're waking up feeling super groggy in the morning. Well, you're just treating the cause, right? You're treating what's happening. You're stressed out, too much cortisol, whether it's from eating before bed, whether it's you're binge watching Netflix or Hulu or something like that prior to bed and that blue light is overstimulating you, or you're on your phone and that's overstimulating you. Those types of habits prior to bed are going to push up your cortisol. If you're doing those things and you have PCOS, stop it. Put your phone on do not disturb mode. Or if you do, at least have your iPad or your phone on, what's it called? Night mode on your iPhone. So that way it's like I have it on this. It's like a yellowish screen. It's not as much blue, so it doesn't smack you in the eyes. The other thing that you can wear are blue light blockers or amber tinted glasses. They're not just a fad. They work really, really well. And you can get them for cheap if you want to experiment with them online. Jump on Amazon or somewhere else. If you don't want to support Amazon, that's fine. But that can be something that you can implement into your nightly strategy. Other thing that you can do, have dimmer lights. We just got into this house. As you can see, we got this new backdrop here. And a lot of our bedroom light is a very warm, kind of like an amber reddish light. Then we have 2 pendant lights in our kitchen that are also very, very like brownish amber color, because we want to, when the kids are down, we want to dim the lights down, hang out with each other. We can read if we want to, but we're trying to limit that exposure to blue light or excessive light, because that's going to trick our circadian rhythms to think that we need to produce more cortisol. Cortisol, again, is going to cause insulin resistance. Huge, huge, huge proponent for PCOS. What else can be happening? Okay. Now, when you run proper testing for PCOS, a lot of people will run certain markers and their endocrinologist will be like, you've got PCOS. And I'm like, well, what's happening with your actual hormones? I love, for PCOS in particular, I love the Dutch cycle map because it gives me the entire blueprint of what your hormones are actually doing. Plus, we'll throw in a salivary adrenal to see what your hormones are doing in terms of your stress. If you got a phase 1, 2, 3 of adrenal exhaustion, that's going to have an impact on your blood sugar. It's going to have an impact on your PCOS symptoms. The other thing that can happen is we look down, if you go to DutchTest.com, go for it. You can see like sample reports. Click on like the Dutch Complete. Okay, you'll get a whole printout blueprint of like these gauges. It's going to be found on page 3. And you'll see exactly how the hormones are flowing, right? Because hormones, they flow. And we'll talk, I'm going to do a whole other podcast on just the hormonal pathway and bioidenticals and things like that. But the way that the hormones are going, when we have PCOS symptomatology, I always look down the left side of the cycle page, or the Dutch complete page. What that is going to show you is you're going to have a DHEA-S or DHEA sulfate marker. You're going to have your androsterone, you're going to have your testosterone, you're going to have your 5-alpha and your 5-beta pathways. 5-alpha drops into, on page 2, you'll see your DHT pathways. DHT, it's not just damaging for men. That's going to be the pathway that's also going to be stimulated in PCOS. Now, if, for example, and again, I'm going nerdy in on this for you so that way you can be like, my doctor never tested me on that. And I'll say, no shit. That's why you're on medication. And no offense, but this is your opportunity to really, make strides in your health. And I'm trying to give you as much free information as you can. But it does come down to a super simple test. And I would, 2 tests. We'll get there in a second. But when we have an excess of your 5-alpha pathway, okay, you're just pouring down into the DHT. DHT, I believe, is 8 times more potent of an androgen than testosterone is. So it's the one where in men it causes male pattern baldness. It can cause prostate issues. It can cause issues with skin, irritability, etc. This is a pathway that can trigger PCOS or cause PCOS in women. Now, if we have high, okay, the hormones are going down there and they're like super high, and we look up at your DHEA sulfate, and your DHEA sulfate gauge is low end, or you have a yellow tip, which just means below normal range. What that tells me is there's some sort of inflammation that's going on in your body, whether it's from your diet, from food sensitivities or food actual allergies that you're consuming, dairy, corn, soy, gluten, something of that nature that's going to be inflammatory to your body. Or test 2 that I would recommend would be a GI map, a stool test. Why? Because if we have certain infections in our gut, it's going to be causing low-lying inflammation. And if you Google it, low-lying inflammation, I believe it's even on the Mayo Clinic's website, low-lying inflammation can trigger PCOS, all right? Our doctors typically will tell you if you've got PCOS, it probably ran in your family. But again, there's nothing that you can do for it. There's no cure for this. So all you can do is take this medication. Now, there's a time and a place for that. If your hormones, for whatever reason, I talked to a guy who, great individual, he was talking to me about a back surgery. He was going to try to do some work for us. And he was like, what would you do? He showed me an x-ray of his spine. I'm like, well, this is what I would do. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do this. If that's your mentality, then that's fine. And this isn't easy. These dietary hacks, these changes and stuff, it's not easy for you. Changing your bedtime, you have to have a spouse that's on board if you do have a spouse. There's all kinds of things that go into this, but I want to give you as much information to empower you to bring your body back to health. Now, if there's low-lying inflammation, it can cause a decrease in sulfonification where we're having a difficulty with adding a sulfur group to your DHEA. Now, the adrenals, when your adrenals are burned out, also start to crap out on that DHEA as well. So that's another reason why the adrenals are so important to take a look at. We want to make sure that the adrenals, the DHEA, is back up to the normal range. Now, if we have high DHEA sulfate and we have high androgens, then we follow the pathway. What's your testosterone doing? Is your testosterone not being produced? Or if that's high as well, are we passing them on to your estrogens? If not, then we have to talk about that. We can use certain herbs like saw palmetto, which you've heard. It's not just good for prostate, it blocks that DHT pathway. So saw palmetto, pygeum, stinging nettles, those types of things can absolutely block those pathway. And it's an herb. We have this herb complex we use. I hate the name for it. It's called Prostate Supreme. And I give it to women with PCOS all the time. I'm like, listen, you don't have a prostate, but like this stuff works at blocking this pathway. This is how. Another thing that can help if we have too many androgens and we don't have any estrogens at all, and you're just bottom of the barrel, there's an herb called white peony. It looks like pony, but it's white peony, like something like my son spelled it all wrong. White peony helps with conversion of testosterone into your estrogens. Now, you do want to be careful with that because if you don't know what your estrogens are doing past the primaries, you can be fueling a process that can be very damaging, and you could be causing cancer if your hormones are going down this other pathway. You have your 2-hydroxy, 16-hydroxy, and your 4-hydroxy pathways. Again, this podcast is easiest when you get home. If you're listening to this in the car, just go to thedutchtest.com. Look this stuff up and you'll get this entire cycle map. Or if you want to just DM me on Instagram, send you a picture and a link that you can go and just look at this stuff. All right. This is what I'm talking about too, is where we get tested for PCOS, or women get tested for PCOS, but it's completely incomplete. And I know that didn't really make sense, completely incomplete, but it is. It's an incomplete test. It doesn't give you the reason. We're doing symptom testing. We're not doing cause testing, right? Symptom testing. Do you fit the mold that I can use the DSM code book to tell you that you have PCOS? If so, here's your medication. This is all we know how to do. Good luck with it. I'll see you when you need to refill this or monitor your dose, right? Pretty crazy. So anyways, those types of things can absolutely help with those pathways. But when we're also talking about insulin resistance, we're talking about sleep. Another thing that can be very beneficial to you, and a lot of women are actually really educated on this, and I love it, inositol, inositol, inositol. There are different types of inositol that are up there, but inositol can help you with balancing your insulin, and it can also help you with sleep, and you can even have some weight loss associated with that as well. Simple herb that you can use. You can buy it over the counter anywhere. If you need some, you can reach out to us to get it. But again, these are all things that you can just do and order on your own. Just be cognizant that it's good to also have that hormone test run, so that way you're not putting something into your body that you may not need or that would influence a negative pathway. White peony would be one that you need to talk to me before you ever put that into your regimen. Otherwise, well, first off, you probably can't get it. Second off, well, you probably could. Second off, if you put that in and you're doing it for too long and you're causing too much estrogen to pour out of there, it can have some negative effects with that, okay? What else do we see a lot of the times with PCOS? We see a lot of issues with the liver. A lot of issues with the liver. Be that you've got mold toxicity and your liver can't process through it, or you went on a bender for 4 years in college and you completely poison your liver and it can't handle this. Because what will happen is you have normal hormonal maturation. You'll get rid of hormones through the liver. You'll do hormonal maturation through the liver where your hormones will develop into what they are. But if we can't get rid of, we can't methylate, we can't get this stuff out of our body, it causes a back pressure buildup. And we've seen this quite a lot, where people are like, I have too many hormones, I've got too many androgens, I've got too many estrogens, I'm estrogen dominant, and I don't know what the heck is going on, and I think I need this, and I think I need that. And I look and I'm like, well, no, it's your liver. You're not getting rid of it. You're not methylating, you're not getting rid of the excess estrogen, or you have a stool test that shows up and you have high beta glucuronidase. Use calcium D-glucarate to help with that. But high beta glucuronidase sends the estrogen right back into the bloodstream. So you just keep cycling this stuff. But think of your hormones like a bathtub. You just keep pouring water into the bathtub. But if you don't have the drain open, you're just going to keep filling it up and up. So your hormones will go and you'll have a lot of 2-hydroxy, 4-hydroxy, 16-hydroxy, high estrogens, high testosterone, and then it'll spill back over and go into your androgens and can go into that 5-alpha pathway. Again, pretty nerdy stuff. I love this stuff, but this is stuff that everyone needs to know, whether you have PCOS or not, because this is how we need to be educated with our hormones. Hormones is not just an end stage fix where it's like, hey, I have too much of this, you just need that. What if you do take metformin? What's that going to do for you? What if your liver can't process that and you're still taking it and you're just causing this buildup of back pressure, and then you have all of these symptoms that are associated with the freaking medication that you took when you could have just made some dietary changes, right? So what do we do here? So again, proper testing, you can absolutely do your luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. You can do prolactin if you want to. This is all blood stuff. You could do those if you want to. Blood sugar, insulin are like good stuff. You could do those. But I would also say, to complement that, make sure that you're running a Dutch test. So that way you can figure out what your hormones are actually doing as they are being produced. Okay? Those luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating, those are signals basically, they're signals from your brain that come down to stimulate that release. And if, again, you're dealing with struggles of getting your body to get rid of those excess hormones, you have to make sure, is it an LH or FSH problem, or is it a liver problem, or is it actually like an ovarian problem? Where is the breakdown? Because the longer we deal with this, the more it's going to lead to that infertility, which is what I work with all the time. Because what that's going to do, that chronic stress, that chronic inflammation in the body, it's going to drop your progesterone down. And that's why a lot of women, if they do get pregnant, they'll lose the baby. Why? Well, because they were too stressed out, whether it's from infections or, again, a PCOS type symptom, or they're eating too inflammatory of foods. and your doctors, your OBs, your team of doctors is not educating you on what it takes to have a healthy, natural pregnancy. So get this stuff fixed prior to going and even becoming pregnant. Make sure your hormones are good to go. Make sure your liver is good to go. Remember, 100 days prior to conception, your baby gets what your body has. If you're detoxing, if you're on medications, if you're taking drugs, like actual drugs, all of that stuff is going to be comprised in your little one. And we already give our babies enough toxins just from natural birth to begin with. We need to be responsible about what we're doing with our bodies if we're choosing to become pregnant. Okay? Now, what other things can we do? I'm going to go through food. All right, there's some foods you can throw in the mix as well. Now, this is barring having any food sensitivities or nut allergies or just actual allergies to any of these. So again, proper testing, make sure you're not eating foods that your body disagrees with or is sensitive to. Otherwise, it's going to be causing inflammation, which is going to cause a decrease in that sulfonification pathway where you're adding that sulfur group to the DHEA, which is then going to make more, DHT and androgens. Okay. First off, almonds. Almonds. Don't go with almond butter. Go with almonds. Actual whole organic raw almonds. Okay. Now, this has been shown to actually increase your sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, SHBG. SHBG. And sex hormone binding globulin, it does exactly that. Sex hormone binding globulin. It's basically like a ball of gum that's going to go around and suck up all the extra hormones, sex hormones that you have. So if you have too much testosterone, you have too much androgens, almonds can then increase your sex hormone binding globulin, bind up the rest, and then push them the rest of the way out of the body. Super simple fix. Food-based, pretty easy. The other thing too is walnuts. Walnuts can also have a pretty similar impact as almonds. So again, barring having a walnut or an almond sensitivity, get those things into your regimen. Even if it's just 5-10 almonds as a snack going to and from work or to and from the kitchen, go for it. It's beneficial for you. They're delicious too. I mean, almonds are great. What else can you use? Flaxseed. So you'll learn a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is going to be fat-based, like healthy fats. So we're going to have our good balance of our omegas. Now, when we're doing flaxseed, the serving that you want to get is about 1 to 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day. 1 to 2 tablespoons. Now, an easy way to do this is if you don't want to eat eggs, you can do a flax egg, where you're basically using that as a measurement. I believe it's one tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of water. You can look it up. We do it all the time, but I just use a cookbook to do that. But again, use as a flax egg. Or if you're doing a smoothie, toss 1 to 2 tablespoons of flaxseed in that smoothie. Now, know that it is great with binding estrogens as well, but it can also influence bowel movements. It is a kind of a fiber. So if you do 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons and you're like, ooh, I have to go to the bathroom, then just sprinkle it in shakes or whatever it is throughout the day. Or if you make like an avocado pudding, put some flaxseed on top of that and eat that in. That could be very beneficial for you. Again, letting food be your medicine here. What else? Spearmint. Not spearmint gum, okay? Spearmint. We can do this in a form of tea. I've known people to just chew spearmint leaves, but doing that can be a known anti-androgen for women with PCOS. So it stops the excess androgen production in our bodies, okay? If you drink it twice a day for, I believe it's 30 days. Yeah, so twice a day for 30 days, it reduces your free testosterone level. So it helps with decreasing those androgens. Now, again, where proper testing comes into play for all of these so far, you have to know if you have too much testosterone, right? Some people will get diagnosed with PCOS and they actually have low testosterone because it's all being converted into the DHT. So be mindful of that as you're doing these natural approaches. If you're like, hey, it's still not doing anything, get your hormones tested so that way you know if this stuff is something that you need or if it's something that you're just wasting your money on. Now, you're not going to have any negative effects if you're trying to reduce anti-androgenic activity and you're drinking 2 cups of spearmint tea a day. It's not going to be the end of the world for you. None of this stuff would be the end of the world for you. This is all good stuff that you can do on a daily basis. It can make a big impact on the hormones, okay? So those are just some easy things that you can do, okay? Supplementally, we talked about the inositol. We talked about the pygeum, the saw palmetto, the stinging nettles. being something that buffers out that DHT pathway. White peony, if you know what you're doing, if you've had your hormones tested, white peony can help. What else? Talking about the liver, we can even do liver glandulars as well. Liver glandulars can help with the processing of toxins as well as estrogens out of the body. And then testing, what would you do for testing? Absolutely do a Dutch cycle map. It's going to be the best money that you can spend whenever it comes to your hormones. Again, you're going to get your adrenals and you're going to get the entire month's worth of cycling. Even if you're like, I don't cycle, I don't know what to do. Do the cycle map, and that can give you the information that you need. On top of that, do a GI map, a stool test. Stool test, I don't even say stool test anymore. Do a GI map. I don't trust hardly any other stool tests that are out there. A lot of them lie. A lot of them are inaccurate. Ever since we switched to the GI map, the results have been going absolutely through the roof. And I've retested things that people have had tested on other tests like a month later, and it's completely different. We treat them properly, and boom, they get the results that they were looking for from the other doctor that used the wrong test. So GI map, super huge thing for you. Sleep. Make sure you're getting proper sleep. Try to get in bed by 10 o'clock. Remember that wind down time, about 2 to 3 hours prior to bed. Try to have no food, no excess food in your diet. If you are craving something like, oh my gosh, I need something, do not go for carbs. Go for protein. Eat a protein shake if you need to, just to get your body nice and full. Or like avocado pudding if you need something sweet, but it doesn't actually have any sugar in it. A nice alternative that you can throw protein powder in that as well to give you some good food, some good satiation. All right. Stress. So remember, we want to make sure that we're eliminating stress the best we can. We didn't dive too much into this, but again, we talk about stress all of the time. If you have toxic relationships, whether it's your boyfriend, your husband, your family, your friends, your coworkers, whatever it is, I would say now more than ever is the best time to be able to set those healthy boundaries out. Having those healthy boundaries, cutting those toxic people out of your lives can be tremendous, because every single toxic person that you have is like throwing inflammation in the body. It's like throwing a knife into your side or a knife in your back. If somebody's a backstabbing jerk, more or less, all right? Cutting those things out of your life can be absolutely profound. I've had women that I've worked with who are trying to cut or change their church that they're in because there's so much toxic influence coming from a church. So it's everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. But make sure that you're doing the best that you can to reduce stress. You can do a very easy gratitude journal where you just do 10 things a day that you're grateful for. It could be the same thing every single day if you need to, but start doing that. Also, start throwing in I ams. So do some affirmations. I am healthy. I am fertile. I am this. Whatever you want to be, throw in those I ams, and that can also help you to get to your goal and accomplish your goal quicker. The I ams, do that before bed or first thing in the morning. Why? Why would you do that? Well, because your conscious mind is basically shutting up prior to bed, and it's not really awake first thing in the morning. So you're more subjected to being able to believe something that you might not believe yet. Kind of a fake it till you make it, but you would never say that. Claim that. Claim that is what it is, and it will become true. If you keep saying, I'm sick, I'm unhealthy, and you just focus on all the negativity in your life, it's going to continue to roll that way. So please don't do that. Please start being more positive. And again, if we need a healthy tribe, start finding healthy people. The more positive that you are, you will start pulling those people to you. Okay. But if you keep still living that same toxic lifestyle that got you sick to begin with, you will always require that medication. And that's honestly where medications come into play. Medications, I keep quoting Charlie Majors, a chiropractor that passed away a few years back, but he always said that medications are a permission slip to keep living the life that made you sick. Okay? Stop it. Stop with that. We have the knowledge. We have the power inside of our bodies to heal ourselves. Shift that 180 and just keep walking every single day, knowing that your body is getting healthier and healthier and healthier. The choice is ours, and now all the information that you need is out there. Dive into this stuff. Fact check me if you want to. This is how we get the results in our clinic where other systems have failed, whether it's medical doctors or endocrinologists or fertility specialists. They're missing the boat at the cause, and they're so quick to medicate. Find the cause, eliminate the cause, increase your chance of getting off the medications and reversing PCOS. As a small little disclaimer here, I do not quote unquote treat any conditions in the body, but what I do treat is the cause. When I find the cause, we have side effects. We have tons of side effects of treatment in our office. It just so happens to be that one of them can be reversible PCOS, even though it pisses other people off, aka those other doctors that I mentioned. Keep searching until you find answers. If that's what you want. If you just want to continue to live with medication, that choice is up to you as well. But we're here for you. If you need us, reach out. And again, like we started this off, if you're a doctor that's looking to do what we do and you're like, what the hell are these tests you keep talking about? Just DM me and we'll be able to get after it. And we'll be able to start training to get you up to date and up to par. So that way you can start helping and making a difference in your community and across the world, just like we're doing.